passe l'artiste. Super, encore un but sensationnel. That's a brilliant bit of follow-up play by Mahe. Oh my goodness me, what a shot.
Sagosen setter det hen! Han setter den! De I semifinale igjen!
Hello and welcome to the Uninformed Handball Hour. This is Brian. Of course, I'm joined by Chris and Alex. And the World Championship in Spain 2021 is in the books. And we would like to officially congratulate Norway on winning the gold medal. And of course, Denmark picking up silver. And France coming in third place with the bronze. Amazing, boys, huh?
Amazing final performance from Denmark on the final day, winning the bronze medal match so well that it got upgraded to silver medal. Really impressive.
And France's second half performance was so poor that they were downgraded to third.
No, but I'm dead serious though about Hassan Mustafa's performance there after the final was. I think I've upgraded from top 5 to top 3 moments of the whole tournament. Really enjoyed that. I mean, it was like the most cringeworthy car crash I think I've ever watched, but it was just so entertaining somehow.
We confirmed that Norway is world champion. And Denmark second place. And France the third place. Congratulations for the teams. Second Denmark. I'm not understanding.
Just how he was reading his notes as he walked up, like he just got handed those notes. He's like, oh Christ, what's this? Oh yeah, Spain, right. But Spanish first, and then just read out first, second and third place. A lot of talented handball players, perfect. And then that's it. Classic.
The moment when he said it and then people were telling him, okay, no, you got it wrong. And he's like, I don't understand, sorry. And just continued on.
I am not understanding.
I mean, that's basically his whole career, isn't it? Like, I mean, when I was in Qatar, people were asking him difficult questions, and all he would say is, oh, "Sorry, I don't know what you're talking about." He literally would say that to people who ask him a really difficult question. He'd be like, "I don't know what you're saying," and then he would just answer something about handball being the best sport in the world, and then everyone would be like, "Yeah, okay, well, that's how you get out of the hard questions."
A true politician. And Chris, you got to ask him a couple of tough questions, didn't you?
I tried to. So they had the end of the championship press conference on the Sunday before the bronze medal game. And the whole press conference was what you said, Brian, just, reading from a piece of paper and saying, where people are saying things that are so kind of like basic and wrong that you don't even know where to start, because like anything I say here that's like, that makes any sense, or any question that you give which is actually like deep in any way, it won't even register, or they'll just answer with a basic reply. So I was really intrigued by the opportunity to interview him, and myself and a reporter from Danish radio both like put our hands up straight away at the end saying, yeah, we'll take a one-on-one with him. And we were brought then, like said, okay, you can go to the mix zone and he'll be there. So I was like, okay, that's perfect. Went to the mix zone. He is walking by. Looked like he was going to go around the rope and then to the players' side of the mix zone, which is perfect. But there's a little blind spot in that area. And so he disappeared into that blind spot. And then about 30 seconds later, I thought to myself, he's fucking walked away. I looked around the corner and there was nowhere to be seen. And I don't know if it is a case of him being senile and just forgot what he was supposed to do, or just being a sneaky snake. A little bit of both, I think, is the answer there. So didn't get to push him on many of the topics we've talked about. It feels like really there's no point, because you see him do what he does after the game there, and you're like, well, what's the point in discussing anything with that man? What is the point?
Yeah.
Useless.
Yeah.
How the fuck did he get unopposed? And now every single handball nation in the world is to blame for this. Finton Lyons from the Irish Olympic Handball Association has the same power as the Danish or the German Federation, the Swedes. Only one didn't vote in his favour that was there at the Congress this year. How can you possibly vote in favour of that man? Oh,
it's incredible.
Insane.
It's incredible. It's depressing, really, a little bit as well.
It's depressing.
Because I was looking at that and I was thinking, if you're tuning in now from a different sport and you see that's the guy who's leading the whole thing, it just looks so amateurish, the whole thing. Him waddling up, not properly taking his mask off to give the speech, just everything about it was just... And then getting the order wrong, I was like, come on.
And from looking at the video clip now, it seems like the cameras didn't capture what was the most hilarious thing. A lot of people wrote about it on Twitter, is that the Danes were ironically like jumping around and cheering, having heard that they were in second place, and they're like, yeah, God, while a section of the arena that actually heard him say that were like, what? And then started booing. It was pathetic.
There was one more thing. You guys are going to love this. Sure, Alex, you love stats, so this is right up your alley now, right?
Oh,
Did you know Dietrich Speth from the Commission of Coaching Methods, he said, in terms of quality of the women's handball, we've seen efficiency in attack increase from the 2019 World Championship from 51.6% to 55.1%, which means the quality is rising and getting closer to men's handball. Men's handball being 100% attacking efficiency, I presume. Yeah?
Oh, you want to see? Oh, you want to see, right?
That was just wrong on so many levels. How could they're probably paying for like 20 guys and girls, experts, to be watching this whole championship, compiling these analytical papers and stats, and they're like, how is this a thing? How do you say like the attacking efficiency of the top 8 teams increasing has anything to do with the sport, except maybe pointing towards, okay, because they played a bunch of shit teams at the beginning of the championship.
Clearly.
But even so, then how do you compare that? How do you say that has anything to do with its comparison to men's sport? It's completely
especially
ridiculous.
Because this tournament has been defined by impressive defensive performance.
Yeah.
Like really innovative, incredible defensive performances from a number of teams throughout the tournament. And that's kind of been the showcase in the whole tournament. And then that has no relation to handball being good, because that means people don't score as efficiently, according to the top analytics guys in the IHF.
But there was a final, if you remember.
in between those two ludicrous moments.
There was a final, and what a final. Talk about a roller coaster emotions from implosion to implosion. One to remember. I think if you looked at the scoreline purely at the end, you'd think that was kind of a crap final, but actually was quite entertaining overall.
Fully agree. What do you guys think was the turning point in that one? I have one of like 2 or 3 moments, but I think Alex has a moment, one that not many people are going to go for, and I kind of agree with him. So Alex, take it away.
I don't know what you think. I think for me, the moment was just before the end of the first half. And I think that's probably one of the more obvious ones, in my opinion, because of the mayhem that occurred there, where there was 5 2-minute suspensions across the two teams in the last 5 minutes. But before that, France were in full control. Until minute 24, France were strolling through that first half. They were up by 6 goals, in full control, and then that mayhem happened. And I didn't kind of analyze the exact 2 minutes. I think most of it was justified, maybe a bit harsh, and there was like a stoppage in play where the referee had to check the video a little bit, but it just threw off France completely. Norway got 2 goals back. It reduced the halftime score to 4 goals with Norway having some sort of momentum. And then they did what they did at halftime. Torrier said what he said at halftime, and they came out a completely different team. But that glimmer of hope came from the chaos in those last 5 minutes.
That's exactly what I was expecting you to say. You say it's obvious, but I think the obvious one is they come out at halftime and score 4 goals in 2.5 minutes and equalize. I mean, that is in itself a whole other thing. But yeah, I think that those last 5 minutes and the mayhem with everyone involved, everyone from the delegates down to the players, everyone losing their shit, kind of allowed Norway to get a foothold in the game again.
But I think up until well into the 40 minutes mark, I think France still had a chance to come back into it, and I think they really lost their heads around especially when Krumholtz took 2 timeouts within 2 minutes. And I was looking at that and I was thinking, he gave them a roasting in the 41st minute. They went back out, nothing had changed, and then he did it again in the 43rd minute, and then nothing really. They were going nowhere from there on out. And I was looking at, it was like almost every attack they played, they had someone new in centre back. And I was like, okay, that didn't work. We'll throw. I think I saw it was first No Condi, and then it was Insemenko, and then Pinot, and then Zadi came back in within a space of about 5 or 6 attacks. And it was like, oh, that's not working. Next. And it just felt like panic stations from everyone in France. Like they felt it slipping away from them, and then they just were trying to throw everything at it. And all they were doing was doing these switches and then shooting straight down the middle over the centre block over and over again, or taking these really poor shots from the wings.
Yeah, and it's not to downplay Celia Solberg's performance, which was absolutely incredible. There was a period where she made 9 saves from 10 shots within that period, kind of across 15 minutes. At the same time, there's a bunch of turnovers for France, but they weren't remarkable saves. Of course, it was an incredible performance, but I felt that it was more down to France losing their head. And again, that started at the end of the first half when France lost their head a little bit with the chaos. They came out without a head and just left that head behind for the rest of the game and only scored 2 more goals in the last 20 minutes.
That Pinot penalty as well, where she just, that game was over by then, but she's just completely missing the goal then. That was just like, yeah, that kind of sums up the second half for them. What
did Norway do different between the first half and the second half? Or was it just completely down to France collapsing?
It feels like Norway managed to keep calm throughout it all. And that's what Stine Oftedal said to me. She was most impressed with the fact that they just didn't lose their own head in going 6 goals down. They didn't look too panicked. And they probably know the way that they can play, that they can do what they did at the start of the second half. A lot of players who simply didn't perform in the first half. So Henny Rice came on for 11 minutes and things weren't clicking for her at all in the first half, and she said that herself as well. They tried to bring her in a lot, and it just wasn't working. There were turnovers. She wasn't getting shots off. Then she got that goal right at the buzzer for halftime. Same for Nora Merck. She was 2 from 6 in the first half. Some of the shots she took were just nowhere, and then she scored the first goal in the second half. And so I think when you have players like that who simply aren't scoring, it isn't working for them, and then they managed to stick with that and eventually found form. I think that was the main thing. There were small adjustments in defense. They sat back a little bit more, so they weren't as aggressive in defense, and that seemed to work out well for them. And France, I guess they were taking the shots that Norway wanted them to take. Besides that, I don't think there was any huge differences. It was just some individual players began to hit form, and the defence made their small adjustments.
Yeah, and interesting enough, France's 5-1 defence, which we've seen being completely devastating for the last number of years, the one with Enzeminko up in front, just didn't work either. Norway, I feel like that's probably something that Norway prepared for, that exact defence, how to counter it. They were able to get through continually, and there's this moment at the very end which really, again, defined France's second half performance, where and Zeminko came out to like make a tackle or intercept a ball, and she slipped and she fell on the ground and was on the ground looking backwards with a hand up as Norway burst through and scored a goal. And it was this really dramatic moment, a Renaissance painting, if you must, that really defined that second half.
100% were prepared for it, because we remember last year's Euro final where they were not prepared for that. They were really uncomfortable, and that almost cost them that final of the Euro, the second half performance in that defense. So, yeah, undoubtedly they had done a fair bit of training in the intervening time to be ready for that.
I think for me, a really impressive aspect of it is just I think there's very few teams in national teams in women's handball that could come back the way Norway came back as well. I mean, to be 6 goals down like that in a final, I think a lot of teams would just completely crumble. And we saw then when Norway did come back, France weren't able to find their second wind at all. So I think just the mental fortitude that was in that Norwegian squad. I mean, they're very battle hardened. We've seen them over the years in so many tough finals, especially against like the Netherlands back in the day. And a lot of that squad is still there. So they have that experience to go on, and you could really see that. And unfortunately for France, when they were pushed and then it was slipping away from them, they kind of just completely crumbled.
That 6-goal deficit, they also suffered in the first half against the Netherlands, in what was a do-or-die game for them back then as well. They managed to turn that around. And yeah, it goes exactly with what you said. It's that fortitude, the belief that they can literally come back from anything, because coming back from 6 goals is one hell of a turnaround, considering they also went, 7 goals ahead? So it was a 13-goal turnaround in the space of 31 minutes. Super impressive. And yeah, Kari Bratsett-Dahlia was the MVP of the whole championship, which was something that wasn't on my mind really for some reason, even though every time I wrote about her, she was like one of the top performers. She had an amazing championship, made that position her own in the centre of defence with Maren Ardal, and in attack where I think she barely missed the shot in the entire knockout rounds. She was a smart choice.
Yeah, she's the first ever line player to win that award at the World Championship. So is this the new era of line players? All hail our new overlords, the line players, Alex. Huh?
Exactly, following on from Hendrik Pekler's big MVP performance in the Final Four. Now, Dale, it's all about the line players now. You have a good one, you win.
Good goalkeeper, good line player.
My team's always lost.
I'm glad you said that. Who else do we have in the Ulster team? The goalkeeper was Sandra Toft. Left wing was Coralie Lasource. Left back was Henny Reistad. Centre back was Grassadi. Right back was Nora Merck. Right wing was Carmen Martin. Line player was Pauletta Foppa. Nathalie Hagman got in there as the top scorer. And best defender...
There was no best defender.
There was no best defender.
They got rid of the best defender one to fit in Hagman as the top scorer, because the graphic only allows for so much space. So they could only, and in their classic political correct way, they picked a team that encapsulated every semi-final team. So that got a little bit of pushback. That is this All-Star team just a little bit too political?
Yeah, Lena Haugstad got ripped off there.
Yeah, she's absolutely the best defender in this championship, best defender in the world. I don't know, that performance this tournament was absolutely incredible. She averaged 2 blocks and a steal every game, which is miles above what we usually see in handball. And that's just one small part of her performance.
Yeah, her like first and second wave counterattacking as the playmaker / shooter is so impressive as well. She's really kind of created a unique position for herself in that team, which is perfect for what Denmark want to do. So, yeah, too bad that she's not in it. Any other changes you would make to that team?
Yeah, I think so. There's a couple of players that I would have probably put in. First and foremost, Hagman just had to be the right winger. Martin had a usually good tournament, the usual great performance, but nothing too special. Hagman's was genuinely special, and she's not just top scorer, she is the best right winger as well. Two other ones potentially are, one is Yamina Roberts. So that's a tough one because she had an incredible tournament, but that loss against France, she was shut down. But still, if you're looking at a full tournament, I think Henny was great. Her, usual fantastic self, but as a non-starting player, as an impact sub as well.
Also, because she was. I think she might have been more centre back than left back for Norway there, because they do those two positions are very interchangeable. But I think she often played as the centre back there, while Heg Arnson was left back, for example. But anyway,
the second one is bit left field, but I think Diona Hauser from the Netherlands had a fantastic tournament. And of course, it's very hard to give an all-star place to a player who didn't even make the quarterfinals. But she was really a delight to watch. Like this surprising power from a player who really looks like a young girl, but plays. She's such a great shooter, such a powerful player, and that was great to see. The Norm Merck one is, it's hard to displace Norm Merck, isn't it?
I did have House here written down as well. But yeah, when you're the ninth best team in the championship, it's hard to squeeze her in there. But definitely a future All-Star team player. Anyone else that impressed you there, Brian?
When I first saw it, I think I was pretty happy with it, and I was reading online that some people saying Oftedal should have been in there, but I'm not. I'm not sure about that, but I think I probably would have left it as. I do agree with what Alex said about Natalie Hagman. I mean, absolutely bonkers tournament. But what it's like, Chris, when you're picking, or when they're picking the shortlist for these teams. There's often the whole aspect of we need to have someone from this team in here because they got to a certain position, and it's there is that aspect of political correctness when you're making these teams. But I think overall it's definitely not a bad all-star team. I think we've seen a lot worse, and there was no real outrage. There was just some people saying, I think Stina Oftedal was probably the biggest one, but she has just such fanatical fans that I did want her in every single All-Star team. But I'd be fairly happy with that selection as it is, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oftedal did do well as the championship went on. I think in the big games she had a very nice, good role to play. Also, the goalkeeper, I think if there's ever one to give it to the two goalkeepers, I mean, Toft and Reinhardt, I mean... I think Reinhardt probably statistics-wise was slightly better. I haven't looked at it in a few days, but I guess so.
Yeah, it was. That was one in the Danish media that had quite a big divide. I think there was a bigger push for Reinhardt as the best goalkeeper. Yeah, hard to divide those two. I think they're both equally amazing.
I do have the stats now, right? So. Reinhardt for the entire championship was 50%. And that's with 141 shots faced. Toft, 188 shots faced, 43%. It's phenomenal. 50% for an entire championship.
It's crazy. And potentially the greatest face save of all time.
Yeah.
That's worth a few saves, that one, really, isn't it?
Was that?
That's worth a few saves stat-wise, like, That should be 5 saves just for...
bonus points, yeah.
Every time a keeper gets a save to face like that, that's worth 5 saves. Yeah. That's an iconic picture for Time now, for Time magazine or something.
That's it. Well, congratulations to Bia Dala for taking that picture, who is probably now like a bit raging for not watermarking it because it's been stolen by every single person and media outlet in handball. But yeah, at least people within the bubble of the championship were able to find out it was her and gave her the credit for it. Yeah, amazing shot.
It also started off a little bit of debate on our Twitter about punishment. I have very strong feelings about punishment for a shot like that. So under the current rules, that shot shouldn't be punished. It's really limited to the 7 meters. But there was some interpretations of the rules that may give an opportunity to punish such a shot.
From next year, it is changing now. So from next month, and there'll no longer be red cards for these shots from penalties, but any kind of shot like that, which is like unopposed, the shooter, it's a 2-minute suspension. So even if it's wing shot, backcourt shot, whatever, Henny Rystad shot, it was too fast for Cleopatra Dorlo and it was like a left hook. That would have been, even if it's from 9 meters like that, it would have been a 2-minute suspension.
Yeah, and I think that's right. It has been addressed, and that's the way to do it, because I'm not saying that we should get rid of shots, risky shots. So, when a player gets hit in the face, it's usually down to the wing player or whoever's shooting trying to get it above the shoulder or right above the head with power. That's a risky shot, but there has to be some sort of deterrent for that type of shot that, yes, you can take it, but if you do mess up, you will get punished. So you have to think twice about it, because you just have to protect the goalkeepers in this case.
Fully agree.
You won't have goalkeepers throwing their face in front of certain bad shots now, will we?
I think it's a goalkeeper who, if their head isn't moving, right, and they get hit. Yeah. So if they won't be like seals diving at the ball.
I was just imagining a really bad broken wrist shot and some guy just going, huh? 2 minutes, off you go.
Oh, you got me.
You got me.
No.
Diving into the bottom corner with your face.
That's something I can picture
France are
Nicholas
now down
Landin
to
doing.
3 players. It's a great performance from Landin.
4 head saves in a row. Oh, gosh, yeah. Should we talk a little bit about any other impressions of the final weekend?
I think the last impression is that our predictions were on point this championship. And I know we covered a lot of bases. Still, that like the permutation of no matter what, Denmark will win on the Sunday, and no matter what, Norway will win on the Sunday came true.
Wasn't it no matter what, Denmark will win on the Sunday and France will lose on the Sunday?
That was it.
Either way, both perfect, yeah. So, and while I tried to earlier in the championship be a bit different, and we were both kind of hopping around permutations, Brian Campion went straight for it every single time and got it perfect every single time. So Brian, anything to say on that?
I mean, it feels good, but it doesn't feel that good, because I was picking basically the favourites every time. So when you're picking Norway to win the championship, you can't feel that good about yourself. But look, I'll accept any awards that people want to send me. I'm happy to. I'm open arms here. It is Christmas coming up, so what did I win, Chris? Please tell me I won something.
Like I said early in the championship, respect, dignity.
Yeah. I should have put money on it.
We'll get, and a pint in Budapest next month.
Yeah.
And that brings up a little question here, because this championship was fairly predictable, and it feels like there are 6 teams in the women's game, and actually on the men's side as well. It's becoming quite repetitive. The top nations that we see coming into the semi-finals and the finals, and there seems to be a gap growing between basically the Scandinavian nations, France, and whatever team is kind of hot at the time, Spain in there usually, and the rest, and that gap doesn't seem to be closing. It's actually spreading further apart. Of course, we had that great Croatian performance in the last Euros, but it really feels like that second level of teams is just not posing a challenge to the top level of teams. And is that something we should worry about? Is it going to get a bit boring, or can you see that second level of nations kind of being reborn and challenging the top teams?
I mean, it was only 2 years ago where Croatia got to the final. We had Spain and the Netherlands in the final of the Women's World Championship. And then COVID has happened. And I think that may also have a part to play when we think about, if we think about like how often teams, particularly in the Balkans, for example, have been able to come together and train, or players in the second tier of national teams that haven't, let's say, don't have players playing Champions League and might have had their leagues completely stopped for a year. And I think that showed even more in the lowest level, but could also be a factor in the second level. Also, I think maybe we can talk about this as being a trend if, like, for the next 2 years, it's the same teams, but it could just be a momentary wave. But I do agree that this championship was very predictable, so much so that I did say in a Strike Spiller article, or the headline, that it was the unpredictably predictable championship because there were no surprises. Every single game, you could have imagined it happening that way in terms of the result. There was no Spain beating Norway, no Netherlands beating Russia. So yeah, that is a bit worrying, but I don't think long term it's necessarily worrying just yet.
Isn't it incredible how we've done a good few podcasts now? How many podcasts have we done on this World Championship? Was it 4? And I don't think we've mentioned Croatia once, have we?
No. Also, yeah, last year they were bronze medalists in the women's Euros. What are you talking about, Alex?
I did mention that. I did mention that in my initial point.
Yeah. No, but like, it's incredible. Like that drop. I mean, does that prove the theory that they really can only play in empty halls, and as soon as there's a crowd there, they just fall apart again?
I think they had problems with COVID during the championship. So as soon as that happened, like. It lost 4 important players that you can't really put them in the mix then, or you can't really blame them for not performing. So I don't know. Do you really believe that it is like there is going to be a increase in that gap between teams? I mean, we've also seen Egypt become a real contender in the last year in the men's side.
Yeah, and look, Brazil weren't a million miles away this time out for the women, you know, so I wouldn't be worried about it at all. But I mean, yeah, the Scandinavian teams are always, I mean, they're especially Norway, a hub of women's handball, so they're always going to be, I'd imagine anywhere for the next few tournaments up in the top 3, and the team to beat. But I wouldn't be quite worried yet because I mean we did see some good outings from some of the small. I think someone like Germany, for example, will be very disappointed with how it finished, but delighted with how it started. So, yeah, I wouldn't be quite worried yet.
Yeah, I just don't see the gap, and I'm actually talking about now on the men's and women's side. And my worry is really focused on the European teams as well. In previous years, there's always someone like Hungary, Poland, Serbia, Croatia. I'll even throw in Germany there because they're not as consistent as they should be. There's kind of always one of those teams popping up, kind of getting a surprise result, pushing through, and we're just seeing a bit less of that in the last few championships. And for me, the gap seems to be widening. That those teams aren't catching up, and I hope they do. I really hope they do, to just kind of invigorate these tournaments, because again, we're in the next European Championship, we're going to be talking about Norway, we're going to be talking about France, we're going to be talking about Denmark again, and you just want someone else there to at least make it a challenge for them in the main round, for example. That's what I want.
Could be Hungary's year to take on that mantle, you know, with the home Euro.
Well, yeah, and the next Women's Euro, Slovenia is going to be the main host of the 3. So big chance for Anna Gross and co to make a breakthrough. But yeah, that's an interesting point. One more. An Iranian player disappeared. Did you hear about that?
No, I didn't actually.
She left.
What, the 5th one now?
Yeah, 4 from Cameroon. Now an Iranian player has departed and saying she wants to have a better future, both personally and for a sporting side as well. So that the main thing about that makes me wonder is, like, now that something like that has happened, will the Iranian women actually get a chance again, or will the government just like stop them? It's like, well, actually, if you're going to run away or if somebody's going to disappear every time, then we're not going to let you out. So yeah, interesting to see how that one develops, and that could be an unfortunate backlash to that.
Yeah,
We'll see.
If it becomes a thing, yeah, especially, that would be unfortunate.
But I wondered also, that countries hosting will think twice now, or, have some reservations if this is a reoccurring event, that's a risk and, might get pressure from external forces to not bid to host the championships. And sure, they're all happening in Scandinavia anyway over the next 10 years.
It was barely news, though, in fairness. Like, it wasn't exactly, it didn't exactly do the rounds. I mean, the Cameroon one did, but I didn't even hear about that Iranian one. Anyway, fair play to her. We'll see you next time.
Before we wrap up, anything else happened in the handball world?
I suppose there's actually been a lot that's happened in the handball world that we've completely ignored for the last couple of weeks. Nantes have been just the greatest show on earth. They had a full XXL arena for 3 games in a row and just lost to PSG, but then came back and won the cup, which is a great win for them. A really impressive performance, and it's just impressive to see how the club has grown. The Bundesliga is just pure nonsense with COVID cases. Füchse Berlin playing with 9 players and still winning. Kiel and Flensburg losing on the same day, which I don't know when the last time that has happened. And Magdeburg looking like they're streaming through for a Bundesliga title that Chris will celebrate.
Oh yes.
We should have made a bet like the Gary Lineker.
A tattoo of Christian O'Sullivan.
I promise to present the first podcast of next season in my underwear, just for you two.
Yeah. Never mind, it's an audio podcast.
Yeah, exactly. That's how where I'm going to go with that. No, the version of Gary Lineker predicting or like promising that would happen is like if Erlangen won the Bundesliga, Magdeburg doing it and with their perfect 15 from 15 so far is it is a surprise, but not that big a surprise. The fact that they've managed to win them all is amazing.
Speaking of unbeaten seasons, Barcelona lost a game that they lost due to administrative reasons, since it was a rescheduled game and they played a player that wasn't registered at the time. So it's heating up at the top of the Asabal League, heating up at the top of...
Sorry, hold on a second. Heating up because Granollers in second place are a mere 8 points behind now. Well, it's heating up behind Barcelona anyway because there's 5 teams within 2 points hunting second place. Just
to keep the European League roundup going, there's a pretty amazing story happening in Denmark where GOG are streaming ahead in the Danish Championship. Aalborg are extremely lucky that the Danish Championship has the playoff format, because they're currently 6 points behind GOG, who are just playing some incredible handball. And it would be pretty amazing if the season that Mikkel Hansen arrives to Aalborg, they are playing in the European League, and GOG, who are also losing all their best players next year, Gitzel leaving, Bergerud, he's gone, are going to be playing in the Champions League. That would be a pretty incredible story. But they're looking incredible at the moment, and Aalborg really need to get their shit together to actually win that.
Just want to go back quickly to Spain because I mentioned Granollers in second place, right? They played against Barca's B team in the Spanish Cup last week and only won that 46-43 in normal time. Which is incredible in its own way, but also the fact that they were playing against the B team from Barca, who was within 3 goals of them. So I think Barca's A team are pretty safe.
Heating up. It's heating up.
How about the Finnish league, Brian?
The Finnish league? Cox and Dickon?
Yeah.
Jeez, maybe look up stuff here, Chris, eh?
Actually, I've got another one. The Belarus league has had a shock. And Meshkov Brest season goes from worse to worse. in which they lost a league game for the first time since 2019 to SKA Minsk.
Oh,
So that's heating up as well.
Jeez, everything's heating up, isn't it?
Finland.
Actually, the globe is slowly heating up. So we're getting there at the season as well.
Oh, Japan. Alex, you're excited about the future of Japanese handball.
I'm excited for the future of world handball because this week it's not the Japanese Federation, but an organization in Japan has announced that a professional league is coming to Japan from 2024, and they'll have its own entities. I'm still not quite sure exactly what model they'll approach, but I think they're basically not going to use the same clubs that currently exist, but kind of change them around a little bit to create a fully professional league, which is pretty exciting. We've seen Japan kind of embrace a number of sports, rugby probably being the last one, and really make huge progress there. So it's exciting that we have this opportunity, with big names there already, Luca Below and Jon Velasquez. It's a league that looks promising. It'll be exciting to see what money they could get in there. But actually, I'm even more excited for the Indian Premier League, which is 100% definitely going to happen. Well, they announced it, and it was actually supposed to start this year. It was the first tournament. It was going to basically be a kind of one-off tournament at the end of 2021, where all the new franchises, so they've created new franchises. I think 4 have been announced. They were supposed to compete in a tournament that was postponed due to COVID now until next year. But there's substantial money in it. I think roughly 40 million euro has been committed to this project. And the handball playing population of India has been expanding a lot in a very organic and unstructured way. There's villages in quotation mark in India with 80,000 people playing handball. A bit of structure there, a bit of influx of money, and maybe that money brings some professionalism from Europe, could create something exciting there. So, there's I'm always excited for non-European teams, non-European activities, and those two definitely sound promising to me. Now, someone just has to do that in Brazil. That's the big one. That's the big money ticket.
What I'm most excited about this is also the random European players that are undoubtedly going to be playing in these leagues, particularly the Indian one. Like I'm thinking, me and Rasmus Boysen going to Lucknow and play for the Golden Eagles UP. I could see that happening,
So, Chris, you asked me earlier about my Finnish recap of the season. So, firstly, I'd like to say, SIF have been absolutely ridiculously bad. Bottom of the table, have only won one game from 12. Absolutely disgusting. They deserve to go down, and to be honest, I'm shocked they even made it to the division in the first place. So happy to say goodbye to them. But at the top of the league, my goodness, dicking, just using their name and just dicking all over the league. They've won 12 of 13 games, looking on an unbelievable streak, and they have that really stiff core in the middle of their team, going right up the backbone of their team. They're just incredible. And right behind them, you guessed it, Cox. A little bit. I've gone a little bit soft compared to other years, but they're they're right behind them on 22 points. They've lost one more game, so it's going to be some serious stiff competition to see who at the climax of the season, which one comes out on top.
This doesn't play into any of your puns, but why do we have HC Tallinn in 5th place? Have they incorporated Estonian teams now?
I think so, yeah. I mean, with teams like SAF knocking around in there, I don't fucking blame them. Get a few Estonian teams in. SAF could be fucking Estonian.
I'm surprised that Tallinn are in there because there is a Baltic League happening at the moment, but with teams from Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania participating in one competition. and I would have thought that Tallinn would have been in there, but maybe they decided that wasn't to their liking. They were too good for the Baltic countries,
but they are also playing in the Estonian League, HC Tallinn, so they're getting around.
Big ambitions.
So yeah, in the last few weeks they've lost to Dicken, they've beaten HIFK in the Finnish league, then lost to Alingsås in the European Cup, and then played a couple of games in the Estonian league. Wow. There you go. You started with a World Championship podcast, you end with the exploits of HC Tallinn. Congratulations, everyone. We did it.
To everyone who's made it this far,
yes.
You are truly an incredible fan of handball.
Yeah, if you made it to the end of this, let us know, and you'll get a shout out in the next podcast.
Just comment, I'm swinging with the big dickin.
Okay.
And we'll give you a shout out.
That's the password. Good stuff. All right, I think it's time to leave it there. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Alex. And thank you for everyone, you dear people, for listening. Goodbye.